Today, we're thrilled to have a special guest, Charles Hodges, a professor of finance at the University of West Georgia. With an impressive background in both academia and the practical aspects of finance, Charles brings over 3 decades of experience blending his expertise in corporate and behavioral finance in real-world experience in consulting, training, and managing investments through his firm, Fairly Poplar Investments, LLC. Beyond his professional pursuits, Charles is deeply committed to education and community service, serving as a mentor to his students, business professionals, and community leaders. His passion for teaching, coupled with his hands-on approach to finance, makes him a unique voice in the conversation about the intersection of AI, finance, and the future of education. Join us as we explore his insights into the evolving world of finance and the role of technology in shaping our financial future. So welcome, Charles.
Welcome.
Thank you. Sounds like that was written by AI and it did a good job.
It was assisted by AI. We did some editing. That is true. So what AI platforms are you currently using in your personal and professional life?
Well, I mean, it's, of course, integrated into the Microsoft products now. Mm-hmm. And so I'm using whatever for me, it's a backbone. I don't know what they're using, but again, they fairly frequently offer to let me use AI, and sometimes I do. For class assignments, I'm using ChatGPT and Gemini, I guess is the new name of it. It was Bard a couple of weeks ago. And I'm using that in some of the assignments that I'm giving to students. And then more it's a case of experimenting with stuff. And so, when we write an exam, we'll run it through ChatGPT, and we'll run it through, there's some old websites called Chegg and Course Hero. Those are homework help sites. We run it through there to see what kind of scores occur when we submit the exam. And that's essentially how I'm using it right now. And then personally, don't use it that much because I just don't have that many excuses to.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're embracing it. You're a university professor, of course, and how is the university that you serve at, how is it engaging AI, and how is it, allowing students to use it in coursework?
Okay, so that's a multifaceted question,
right.
And so I'll start with the first bad example. What a lot of the professors seem to be doing is treating this as if we've got the internet and we're going to AI, and what they're treating it as is that you've got a manual typewriter and somebody's invented an electric typewriter. So you're not going to change anything you're doing; you're just going to do it faster. But with that said, things like the homework help sites, most professors in no way modified their classes for the homework help sites. And so when you go to things like Chegg, Course Hero, Google's got a site, if you've used a question on an exam in the past, it will be on one of those sites. And if you're talking about like Chegg, they allow you 20 new questions a month. And so if I give an online test, the student can simply copy paste it into Chegg, and within 30 minutes, correct answers will come back, typically from graduate students in India or China, at no cost to the student. And given that they haven't adapted to that, and that's been around 7 or 8 years, I'm not seeing any adaptation at all occurring systematically at the university level. It's more of a case of it's being used as buzzwords. And then some people are doing, like we had one professor who wrote a book, I'm not joking on the title, called 100 Questions That You Could Ask an AI.
Okay.
All right.
And that was his book. And had it been me, I probably would have had the AI write it by saying, give me 100 questions that I could ask you. And that would have been,
right.
I could have had it finished it in 10 seconds.
Could have been a lot faster.
But that's what I'm seeing.
Well, how do you think, and you mentioned this earlier, how do you think lower education, so kindergarten through high school, should be using AI in their curriculum to help prepare students for the college experience?
I personally think AI, we're on a continuum. And so what we're calling AI, most people are really talking about the generative AI, where I can do a prompt and it gives me a written response that makes sense. But if you think about AI, it's been sort of decades in the making, which is spell check is a form of AI. Where,
True.
again, it predicts that you want to use a different word. I'm in finance, and it used to be that humans would make decisions and we would press a button to buy or sell. A couple of decades ago, algorithms were written where I would come up with my trading system, and then I would tell the algorithm to execute my trading system. Starting 15 years ago or so, people were using data mining to find trading systems and then telling the algorithm to run that. And now what you're seeing is that virtually close to 100% of all stock trading in America is actually being done by algorithms. Even if you with your broker say, oh, I want to buy or sell a given stock, when you press that buy or sell button, it's actually routed to an algorithm to execute the trade. It isn't like in the old days where I would say buy 100 shares of IBM and it would go to a specialist on the floor at the New York Stock Exchange. They would match the buys and sells, and then the transaction would occur. Now, those things are almost certainly payment for order flow, where the company, Schwab or whatever, gets paid a tiny fraction of a penny to route this to a black pool, and then the transaction occurs there, and then I'm notified of what the price is. But all of that is being handled by algorithms, and there's really the humans level, me actually putting in a buy or sell order. As I understand it, that represents less than 2% of trading. The other 98% of trading are algorithms trading with algorithms, having nothing to do with humans, where no human said buy or sell.
Interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating because people don't understand we've been using AI for years now in all sorts of things, from Netflix to our smart devices to anything else. And it's just this explosion of generative AI that has people,
Yes.
losing their minds or really diving into it and exploring it. But it's funny to tell people, hey, you've been using AI for years, and see their expression change to what that means for them.
So
Yes.
one of my questions is, since we've been using AI for a while, and you've kind of mentioned it sounds like you're displeased with how some people are approaching it. So what is the right approach when it comes to teaching AI and teaching how to use AI, in your view?
Oh, I guess I wasn't very clear. I don't think that going forward, very many people are going to be learning AI or consciously using AI. Instead, it's going to be the backbone in every piece of software we use.
Yeah.
And so if I'm writing something, whereas before the spell checker would try to correct the spelling, now the software is going to make a recommendation. Don't write the paragraph this way, write it that way. And if I'm in Salesforce and I'm trying to figure out which customers to contact today, several years ago, I would, make my decision on which customers to contact, and I'd enter the data into Salesforce. Then it got to Salesforce would show me my most valued customers by some criteria. Where we're going with Salesforce, and they've been integrating it now, Salesforce is going to analyze the size of the customer when I contacted the customer, the profitability of the customer, and it's going to tell me which customers to contact. I'm not going to consciously say, let me program some AI to tell me who to contact today. That's going to be built into the backbone at the enterprise level. And I think that's the way that it'll be built into K through 12. I think that's the way it'll be built into universities. I think that's the way it's going to be for the various workers. And I think going further, we get into the dystopian type world where already, if you go into most restaurants and you look up, you're going to see a camera over the cash register. And so if you go to a buffet or something, it looks at the items that are on your tray, calculate what's the price should be, and then looks to see, did that transaction ring up correctly? That's been going on for 5 to 10 years. 20 years ago, we had humans every now and then that would spot check it. Now that's being done all machine. Well, where it goes forward is, instead of having body cameras on our police, we're going to have body cameras on our workers, and they're wearing headsets. And when the order comes through at Burger King, the headset will say, pick up 2 tomatoes and put them in the center of the bun. And if you don't, the body cam will say, no, you put it too far to the side, correct it. And again, it isn't something where they consciously choose to use AI. It's the AI is going to be built into the backbone throughout society. Again, that's a dystopian form, but it's also,
it's fascinating.
That's why my credit card transactions go through so fast, is the AI really can spot if it's me or a counter or a hacker.
Right.
Oh, that is interesting. It made me, your description of that with McDonald's for the hamburger, all of a sudden I saw all the employees with Apple Vision Pros on, and they're making digital hamburgers, and I was like, oh no.
Yes, but that is going to be the way. Basically, right now our fingers are more dexterous than a robot, and so. But yeah, you're going to monitor them in real time. They've been doing that in call centers now for a long time, where it listens to your tone of voice, and right now it brings a human supervisor in to check and see if you're handling your calls correctly. Relatively soon, that supervisor will be replaced by AI, and then relatively soon after that, the entire call center will be replaced by AI.
Yeah, I see that
One
coming.
to mention, you're in Spain. You probably heard about that French company that runs call centers, that their stock price dropped, I think it was just 3 days ago, dropped by 30% because one of their largest customers had replaced their telephone stuff that was being handled by this
Call
company with all AI using human voices.
That's nuts. There are some really interesting tools out there in the space, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And for me calling in, I'm going to get a French person who's responding to me in perfect French, and perfect. Everything about them is going to be perfect. And the only way I'll know they're AI is they don't make the mistakes that the human used to make.
Right.
Well, so I want to talk about that, because I think when you tell stories like that, most human beings tend to react with fear. But I kind of would like to talk about the positive. I would like to talk about the positive of that, which is, well, now I'm going to encounter fewer mistakes when I call into an office or those kinds of things. So what do you see as the positive side of this dystopian vision?
That's well, and again, I don't view it. I'm stuttering and doing a fine job of it. That's the part that I don't really view it so much as a negative, because one of the interesting things that I'm running into right now, and you've probably run into it over the years, if you're considered the subject expert, people will come to you and ask you, what question should I ask? And then you'll give them the question they should ask and then give them an answer. And that's what I'm seeing right now, which is, even though the AI backbone is there and anyone showing initiative can use it, most people are still going to the subject matter experts to get the answer to their question, where basically they get, what question should I ask? And then, how do I know if this answer is valid? And so there's going to be a huge number of jobs where I'm becoming more efficient because I am enough of a subject matter expert to know, is this AI telling me something plausible, or is this AI hallucinating? I enjoy those articles about hallucinating AIs, because unless you're a subject matter expert, how do you know it's hallucinating? So no, I see significant improvements in efficiency for a huge number of workers. I think the stuff they're doing where we have these large databases and they're turning the AIs loose in it to basically build competitive models in there. The stuff that the advances that we're seeing in medicine right now, so many of those are because we've had decades of tests and trials, and it was a human trying to look at millions of data points to say, oh, we should try this test. Now that's being done by the AIs. Like, I have little doubt that Ozempic, which has been around for 60 years, and it was originally used for one thing, then the AI noticed, oh, that will lower your blood sugar, so we tested it for that. Then we found out, oh, it causes weight loss. So many of the drugs that you're hearing right now that are being investigated are drugs that have been around for 50, 60, 70 years, and it's only now that they're going back and analyzing all the patient data. And by they, I mean the AI is going back and analyzing the patient data and seeing, oh, by God, we can use it for something else, and it does a good job, and we got 70 years of patient data to show that it's not going to negatively impact the patient.
I didn't know that Ozempic came through AI. That's amazing. Sorry, go ahead, Warren.
No, that's fascinating. I saw a recent video where they were talking about proteins and how the AI was able to extrapolate so many more proteins from various proteins that they fed it. And now we have this library of knowledge that we couldn't have had before. And so it is fascinating to see what this is going to cause for the healthcare sector and how it's going to help, really personalize medicine for an individual. So I'm excited to see what that's going to be like.
I saw another use of AI that I thought was interesting, and it's in a similar vein where, they've done all these studies in terms of brain scans between men and women and couldn't discover the difference. But then they used AI to study the data of something like thousands of brain scans. And after a while, and they trained it and said, this is a woman's brain, this is a man's brain, this is a woman's brain, this is a man's brain. And even though a human couldn't tell the difference, after a while, the AI could tell the difference 99% of the time, which is fascinating that it's capable of seeing things that we are not capable of seeing. Oh, yeah. And what that means for our future, I think, frankly, I can only see that as a positive.
Yeah.
But I think it behooves everybody, like you were saying, to become a subject matter expert, right? Because that's where you remain useful.
Yes.
As a human being. Like, education becomes vastly more important, not less important.
And that's going to be the difficult part, which is, how do I, in a world of AI, force myself to go study and learn stuff when the AI can do it quicker, faster, stronger? And you probably notice this yourself, depending on your age. Chances are you're better at search than your children are.
Oh, yes.
And you're more likely to search for new and original things, whereas they're more likely to be passive, where they just let the social media or whatever serve out to them. So they're not searching for stuff. They're letting the algorithm look at what they click on, how long they spend there, and that's how they're training the algorithm. And yeah.
You're totally right. I mean, Jacob and I are the sons of the librarian. So knowing how to search,
what we know how to do, yeah,
is something we were trained early on as children, because we spent so much time in a library, and then that just translated to the Google search thing. And there probably isn't a day that goes by where my kids will ask a question and you got this most technologically advanced device in your hand right now. You're watching YouTube. Why don't you search it for yourself?
Yeah.
And get the answer. And so that is a fascinating observation. I really dig that.
So what are some industries where you see AI making a bigger impact? I know that you have specific expertise in retail and the restaurant industry. I mean, and you mentioned some use cases already, like the cameras and those kinds of things. So there's just a lot of ways that we've been using AI. People haven't been noticing. Where is this going to come up where we won't notice? Where will it come up where we will notice? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll give one that a lot of people have financial advisors. And if you look, I was a registered investment advisor for about 20 years. If you look, basically the Securities and Exchange Commission, I'm using an American example here, only requires two things. And basically, I need to determine your risk tolerance, and I ask that in two different ways. There's only two questions. And then after that, I need to create a portfolio for you, basically based on your risk tolerance. For the longest time, the way this has worked is after I've asked those two questions, I enter the data into something, and depending on who I'm working for, it comes back with a model portfolio. And then I communicate that model portfolio to you as the customer as if I developed it. And so the vast majority of financial advisors now, they really have no independent decision-making authority, in the sense that when we hold our quarterly phone call and I make recommendations to you, that was because just before I came on the call, I pressed a button, it analyzed your portfolio, and then made the following suggested changes. And so you've got that. The same kind of stuff, these within my industry and of education, these websites, they're slowly integrating AI into this, but the chances are, if you talk to some college student now, a lot of them are going to platforms that are created and controlled by the textbook companies, and they're using some form of algorithm, which will eventually be AI, to generate the quizzes and to generate the tests and to grade them. And then right now, I still pick what's an ABCD, but anytime I go into one of those, it actually recommends to me what should be the grading ranges I use for ABCD. And so I see this much more as an oozing, where it just slowly gets into every facet of our lives, again, more at the backbone level. Yeah, we can ask the questions, but going forward, I see so often that the answer will be provided to us before we ever thought to ask the question. And in a few years, again, that's the part that I'm worried about for the very youngest people. How do I get deep enough level of knowledge to have any clue that I'm being given a hallucination versus a real answer?
How do you know what's true? How do you know it's real?
Yeah.
These are big questions.
Well, that's what I've told many professionals when I've talked to them about AI is it is your expertise that is going to drive your use of it, because you know when it is hallucinating or when it's giving you a bad answer. I mean, Jacob, you're aware of it, and like early on where a law firm used ChatGPT and it created case law and they really didn't vet that content. So it is definitely, you're spot on with that, Charles, is your expertise, your knowledge is going to provide you more insight than those that are just kind of sitting on the sidelines and going, what questions should I be asking?
Yeah. And we're seeing that like in stock trading now, which is there are, basic statistics. I need 30 relatively independent observations to create some type of statistical model that will allow me to say yes or no on something. And depending on how much expertise, I may need a bigger data set. And so, we have lots of data on the Fed changing interest rates. We have lots of data on recessions. We have lots of data on things like that. But what we don't have any data on is land wars in Europe. Basically, we don't have any stock data that predates World War II that's more than once a day data. And all of our models are built on what are called tick data, which is second to second transactions. And so events that you and I in our minds say this should really affect XYZ, we're not seeing it affect XYZ because you can't train an AI on it. So when Russia invades Ukraine, so we have a land war in Europe. Historically, that really means something, but you didn't really see our stock markets move because nobody had a model to model what happens when we have a land war in Europe.
That's
You know,
fascinating.
we've got
Interesting.
two ancient people running for president. You're not really seeing it affecting stock markets or markets in general because you can't model that. It's a one-off. And that's where I'm finding the most interesting stuff as a human trying to use expertise is things that you know that fundamentally matter, that you can be pretty well assured that no AI can be written, no model, predictive model can be created on that thing. That's where the big opportunities are. And so I see massive opportunities for small businesses where they can find in their communities niches that the big people that need the big data sets, their big data set says, okay, I'm going to locate in this major metropolitan area and I'm going to do this. Whereas I think, and because they're basically slaves to their model, there are tremendous opportunities for smaller businesses and new technology where the AIs can't do anything with that because they've got no model written for that.
They're data blind.
Yes, I love that term.
Data blind. That is great.
That brings up. So as you were talking, this question came to me, which is, and I don't know where you stand on like the ethical implications of privacy and those kinds of things, but you've got to be thinking that these big tech companies, particularly the generative AI, everybody who's got a stake, has got to be thinking about that. Like, how do I collect more data to essentially make decisions for every aspect of a person's life? Which is how they generate more revenue. And then, are you scared by that? That a good thing, bad thing, or is it just a thing?
Okay, so the first thing is I don't consider myself unique. I have a standing joke that all 65-year-old men and 9-year-old girls look alike. And what I mean by that is, how many brands of bread are in the store? 4 or 5. And so I don't need to know everything about me to be able to build a model that will predict, 1, whether I will buy bread, and 2, which brand of bread I'm going to buy, which type of drink I'm going to drink, which kind of car I'm going to drive, where I'm going to live. And so I think in most cases, these big firms have long ago passed the amount of data they need to make very predictive models. Right now, we've got, we're in the beginnings of the presidential campaign for this year. And I have been amazed and I'm in Georgia, so we really haven't voted yet, Georgia, United States, that these predictive models are targeting me. And when I talk to my friends who are different than me politically, they're getting different candidates targeting them with different messages. And so I guess, it sort of bothers me when they collect more data on me, but the reality is I don't think they're really improving their decision models by having more data. And I think that's the case for most people. Most people are just not unique enough that having more data about them will improve my decision making about what they're likely to do.
But this begs the question, which is, so you've been pointing out opportunities, and one of those opportunities is finding niches where AI is data blind, and then maybe kind of applying expertise in those areas. But now you've kind of put forward this other idea, which is another opportunity would be tweaking models to make better decisions, because a lot of large organizations, like the same organizational sludge, like a larger organization just moves slower than a smaller organization. So larger organizations may not be able to train their model in an efficient way to take advantage of a smaller market. I mean, is that kind of...
Phrase it a different way. That'll give me more time to think.
No, it sounds like what you're saying is that somebody who actually knows Charles Hodges is going to have a better bet at influencing you than an AI model.
Okay, no, that isn't what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, think in the old machine terms.
Okay.
You know, how precise a machine do I need versus how much slop can I have? You know, so how bad can my bearings be? How old can the belt be? And the machine still function? I would argue that in most cases, we can have some pretty bad bearings and pretty sloppy belts. So that analogy will not be understood by anybody under the age of 30. And the machines still function. And so, you know, think about me as a professor. What they need is for me to show up on time for class, give a reasonably competent lecture that the students are not overly offended by, and that I get my grades assigned on time, and that I go to my various meetings. I can function within very wide parameters and still accomplish those things. And them having better information about me, yeah, they can, quote, manage me better, but it's sort of, why are they spending the money to try to manage me better when I'm functioning within the highway they need me to function on?
So there's
and that's
too much.
What I see for a lot of people. You know, as long as my cashier is ringing up the people at the right pace, and I'm using a fast food example, if they're ringing up the people at the fast food, again, augmented by AI, which is listening to the order and putting it on the screen, and they're handing back the right change, as long as they're doing those things, do I care if they're bored? Do I care? I mean, there's just so many things I don't care about. And so I don't really see any need to get overly precise in my models.
Yeah, there's such a thing as too much data, where it's diminishing returns, where you're not going to get anything additional that's going to help you with that next decision.
Yeah, that's exactly where I see it. And I see more use a lot of times with doing A/B testing than I do with trying to get more data to be predictive. Because in many cases, if you're behaving in a way I don't expect, what I need to do is to get a data set that is large enough where I can do some A/B testing that will try to explain why you're behaving in a way I don't expect. And an AI can't do that. That still fundamentally is at the expertise level of the person to try to create the A/B testing.
You could create an AI model to help you with your A/B test, right? Like you could then say, look, function this way, but then function this other way to kind of see which provides better outcomes, collect better data.
And I can create an AI model that will show me the anomalies of someone's behavior that I didn't expect. And if I can get a big enough data set of anomalies across enough people, then I can turn some AI loose in there to see what are the commonalities that are there that I've either missed or that I need to do some type of A/B testing to find out why I'm missing it.
Yeah. What has surprised you the most about AI in the financial sector, in your personal work? What have you found that's really surprising with AI?
Okay, so when they finally released ChatGPT to the public, I had seen a little bit of it private, but when they finally released it to the public, I immediately went and used it. And as soon as I used it and I spent a couple of hours messing with it, I actually set my retirement date because it's a technology I cannot defeat. And once people start thinking through how to use it, I essentially become irrelevant. And so, like, we've already had for decades, most stock trading is done by algorithms. It's moved into bond trading. It's now, a lot of the bigger firms are using it in commercial property, but there's still insights that I thought that I could give to my students. But what a lot of them have done is they've used these homework help sites where you go there and basically, especially when a new textbook comes out and a test bank comes out, these people enter the test bank with the answers. And so a student, all they do is copy paste the question into the homework help site, and it gives them the answer. I can defeat that because what I would do is, because I've been teaching a while, I'll create 50 questions where I'm only changing a word or two, and that changes the answer. And no human is good enough to be able to read those 50 questions and therefore give me the right answer. And so basically, if you're coming and cheating on my test that way, you have about a 2% chance of you actually getting the question that I actually ask. And then if there's 5 multiple choice answers, you got 5. What we've moved to is more answers. But as soon as you turn an AI loose in those homework help sites, and it can augment itself with what's out on the internet, that way of creating questions does me no good. When you copy paste that question into the homework help site, the AI will know the answer. And that will be a universal where never again will a student miss a question. And you've already got that where, with the LSAT, didn't ChatGPT score in the 90th percentile, which would have gotten me in any law school in America. I've got students that are going to law school now. They're getting into good schools at the 67th, 70th percentile. Well, yeah, and again, if I can score that high on the LSAT, how high can I score as an actual lawyer when it's trained that way? And so anyway, bottom line was I set my retirement date because I didn't see any way for me to defeat it once people thought through ways to use it.
Well,
so I don't think that answered your question, but that's,
No, it did, and your tests were insightful and difficult.
So one of my questions then is it sounds like you kind of see this as replacing just so many jobs. So what are the jobs that you envision being out there, or is it just societal collapse?
I went to a meeting a couple of weeks ago where it was all the commercial property people in Atlanta. So it's the salespeople, the owners, the financiers and such stuff. And we had an economist talk, and she was talking about a study that had been done by Boston Consulting Group, where they basically did an A/B test where they told people not to use AI and they told people to use AI. And what they found was the people that were using AI were much more efficient. I'm not going to give numbers because I'll probably forget them, but they were much more efficient. And when they did the testing, of course, what they found is that their highest performers were not improved by AI. Their lowest performers their lowest and mid performers were significantly improved by AI. And so sort of the conclusion I drew from that is if I've got this organization and I'm using this AI and I can get significant improvements in productivity, 20, 30, 40%, and I've got, let's say it's 1,000 workers and I get a 20% improvement, either I've got to get 20% more business or I've got to eliminate 20% of the workers. And since all of my competitors are using AI, there's no reason to think I'm going to get 20% more business. So now I've got to get rid of 20% of the workers. Which 20% do I get rid of? Well, chances are I actually get rid of my top 10% because they're costing me the most money and AI is not improving them. And then I get rid of my bottom 10% because, while they're dramatically improved, they're still not as good as my 40th percentile that was improved by AI. And so that's where I see the changes occurring is a lot of people are, I want to build my expertise so that I can defeat the AI. But if I am a super high level performer, I actually think my job is at a huge amount of risk. So basically the top and the bottom to the bottom 0 to 30%, and the top 10%, those are the ones I see at risk. The people that will get significant improvements in what they can do are basically that 30th to 90th percentile because they get huge benefits from the existence of AI and they're competent enough to use it efficiently.
Yeah, that was a fantastic report. I read through the report and it was fascinating. So you hit it right on the head with kind of what they were talking about as well, the diminishing of certain jobs and how that might impact just all sectors.
So what advice then would you give to people maybe in the finance sector, which is, your industry, in terms of how to prepare for the future career prospects, to be able to keep a job in this world of AI?
Okay, now that my answer there is going to be less to do with AI, because mostly, I'm teaching at the university level, so my people that I'm seeing are 21 to 26 at the graduate and senior level. What I think is going to be the biggest driver is actually demographics. And so we're talking about the Gen Zs. They're basically our 10 to 26-year-olds right now. They are a tiny little cohort of people. Much smaller than the baby boomers or the millennials or whatever. And this, in fact, is the year where the Gen Zs actually become a bigger part of the U.S. workforce than the baby boomers who are leaving due to retirement. And like in accounting last year, we lost roughly 150,000 baby boomer accountants, and we had 30,000 Gen Z students come out as accounting at the undergraduate and master's level. So basically 5 jobs were created for every one that we have 5 people retired for every one that came into the workforce. And so what I'm telling my students is, as fast as possible, get out there and get a job. Because one, the jobs are plentiful and they're likely to remain so for the next decade or so. And so even if AI is eliminating, make up a number, think of a horrible number. It's eliminating 60% of the jobs. Well, go back to my example with the accountants right now. So there were 5 baby boomers that retired, and I don't, by the way, think it's 60%. 3 of the 5 jobs were eliminated by AI. That still leaves 2 jobs for every body coming into the workforce. And so I'm telling them to get into the workforce, get that job, and then I'm actually a baby boomer. I was born in 58. Part of what happened to me was when I came into the workforce in the 70s, those baby boomers that were 5 years older than me were my bosses. And so for the next 30 years, I worked for baby boomer bosses 5 years older than me. Had I gotten into the job market 5 years earlier, I would have been that boss, and significantly more earnings over my entire lifetime. And so what I'm telling these Gen Zs right now is, as soon as you can get qualified for a job, get out there and get it. You learn so much from working. And what's going to happen is, again, all the baby boomers going out, you're going to get promoted over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And then as AI becomes more and more integrated into the workforce, who's going to lose their job? You're not going to hire those intro level people 6, 8, 10 years from now. And so to me, the way that if I'm a young person, the way I defeat AI is I get out there and I start working to where I'm the 3rd level boss by the time it takes away 60% of the jobs. And again, right now, with all the baby boomers going away, you need to get into that workforce as fast as possible. And there's so many opportunities to train yourself on the job. And again, I want to be the person deciding who gets fired rather than one of those that's getting fired because of the AI efficiencies. I mean, that's essentially where I'm at now. I'm a tenured full professor. As long as I don't do certain things, it takes 5 years to fire me. And so as the AI is eliminating professor jobs, I'm the one getting to decide who we're not hiring. And that's what I'm telling young people now. Get out there so that you can decide who doesn't get hired because of AI efficiencies.
Nice.
That is fantastic
That's
advice.
Good advice. Yeah, it's solid.
Well, fantastic. This has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for joining us today, Charles. And we really appreciate it and enjoyed the conversation about AI and how you're using it and how you see it, impacting the future of finance and the future of work in general. So thank you for joining us today. Much appreciated.
I really appreciated the chance to be here.
Yeah. Can I end with a question about
Please.
What resources have you been using? What books, courses would you recommend in terms of artificial intelligence? In terms of really wrapping your mind, and you're going to start with 100 questions to ask AI, right? So we heard that one.
Yeah. I'm planning on topping his book. I'm going to go to the AI and say, generate a book, 101 questions to ask AI, so that we can, remember the old days where you had the 60-minute workout, then it was the 30-minute ab, then it was the 22-minute ab, now we're at the 7-minute ab workout.
Right. Yeah. No, everybody's beating each
so
other.
Anyway, like I said, I really think AI is going to be a backbone. And so most of the AI that we're going to interact with is going to be something we never see as there. And so what I'm telling people right now is make excuses to use ChatGPT. Learn how to do data analytics and statistics so that you can run some models. Learn what it means to be significant at the 5% level, the 2.5% level. Learn what correlation does to your models as far as their likelihood to be accurate. And then do some thinking about where data analytic models can be created versus where they cannot. And again, that's largely, there are a huge number of significant things that are happening where we've got data sets of less than 30. That's the place that your humanness can really come through and the AI can't really replace you. And because AI is going to be making so many decisions, you actually have time to make that decision at human scale. And so, like the way that I'm trading stocks right now is basically trading against the AI's biases to make decisions using less than 15 minutes worth of data. And in most cases, they're trying to make predictions about the next 1 to 2 seconds. And so I'll give a big, bold prediction if you'll listen to this in 5 years. NVIDIA is dramatically overvalued. The NVIDIA stock price is going to fall by 75%. When that's going to happen, I don't know, but I know that's going to happen within the next 5 years. And so does it matter that I short it today versus a year from now? And there are similar things. For a variety of reasons, I think the demand for lithium is going to go up. It has to do with, I think there's more and more demand for batteries, and if you really believe electric cars are going to be common in the future, you got to have lithium. And so you can buy lithium stocks now. Sometime within the next 10 years, you're going to look like a genius. And again, the AIs that are making decisions in the next second, no more than 15 minutes in the future, they would never make that decision. And so going in and messing with the AIs and then trying to think about the data analytics part, where is an AI likely to make mistakes because it doesn't have a data set big enough to make a decision. And conversely, where those data sets are big enough, then use it. And so, for instance, if I was a medical researcher, I would not spend any time reading old papers and then trying to say, here's the 12 variables they used, I'm going to pick the 13th. No, I'm going to turn AI loose in these giant data sets and say, look for correlations that nobody has used before, and then tell me what they are. And that's what I'm going to use to guide my research. And so that's what I was doing in finance 15 years ago, because again, I was already competing with AIs. A lot of these people in these other fields, that's what they need to be doing, is turning the AI loose in large data sets. And it can be your customers. If you're a salesperson, AI is getting cheap enough, you've got data on your customers, turn it loose. You'll get different answers than what the Salesforce AI is getting, and that gives you an advantage.
Huh. Very cool.
So anyway, that's sort of the end thing I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
Glad to be
Fantastic.
here.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it.
Okay.